Hi everyone, welcome to Rick's 135th Scale Models. My name is Rick. Today we're going to be taking this Tamiya Gepard and upgrading it, weathering it, and adding some camo netting. But first I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of the Gepard vehicle. The Gepard was developed for the West German Army in the 60s and then entered service in the 70s as this version. Eventually it was retired in 2010, but at that point they'd upgraded to the Ming A2 series shown here, which had some extra equipment, air conditioning, and supplies on the back, along with some different other modifications to the vehicle. But in the 70s, Tamiya came out with this model, and at the time it was a nice kit, but it does have some things that it's limited on as far as detail, and I'm going to address that. I built this kit back in the late 70s when it first came out, and at that point it wasn't painted properly, so I have since repainted it, but I still need to add some of the modifications on it to make it look a little more realistic. I'm also going to weather it with enamel paint and some pencils and chalk, and then I'm going to add some camouflage netting from AFV. The vehicle, once it got retired in 2010 though, was replaced by the Weasel series, which consists of a radar unit, a command unit, and 6 of the Stinger missile units, which has 4 rockets on it. But let's get on to the project itself. Okay, so here we're going to have a Ming Gepard 2 version, and this is the original version, and this is the Tamiya kit that I'm going to actually be fixing up, replacing some broken off parts, and then also making it look a little more realistic. Now, in looking at pictures, I can't find a picture anywhere that shows this piece here, so I'm going to remove that. I'm also going to add some track links up here on the front of the vehicle, which all the pictures show. And then at some point the rearview mirrors fell off, so I have those that I'm going to replace and have them folded. Now I'm going to add some of the chain that goes here for the smoke launchers, and then I'm going to weather the whole vehicle, spending a lot of time on the undersides, areas that aren't going to see as much washing ability. And then from there I'm going to add some camo netting on the barrel, somewhere is here, up here. Just use it to kind of cover up the less quality casting parts, paying close attention not to have it hanging down in the track area where it would naturally get entangled. And then a little bit down in front, and showing a vehicle that has been out and deployed. It's not in heavy mud or anything, just some light road grub and things like that. But that's the process. Now, first thing I'm going to do is get the rearview mirrors on, take this part off, repaint all that, add the chain links and the front end parts, and once that's done, we'll start the next stage. Initially I'm using your standard spruce snips to get the part off. I'm not overly concerned with the smoothness of this because it's going to be covered up mainly with the camo netting, but I do want to use as much care as possible to not damage the vehicle or some of the decals, such as the weight scale. From there I'm going to use sandpaper and gently sand off the rough edges and get it as smooth as possible. The idea here, again, like I said, was I'm not overly concerned with the having it totally gone. I just want it to not noticeable. From there I'm going to take any of the low points and fill in with putty and then smooth it out. I'll use the straight edge to take it and get it close, and then I'll sand the rest of it to finish it off. Once I know exactly where I'm going to install the extra track links, I'm going to scrape off all the paint that was there so I have a good glue point, and then I'll use your standard plastic model glue and glue them down. A little bit of scratch built extra parts, the mounting brackets, and then this is complete. As I said before, this will be covered with camo netting, so a lot of this won't be obvious. Then after that, I'm going to drill out the holes in where the rearview mirrors mount, because I'm going to be using wires. I'll get both sides started so that I'll have a good glue point, and then I will bend the wire part of the rearview mirror to fit in that hole area, and then I'll have a good mounting point. I'll secure the rearview mirrors to the wire, and then from there I'll secure the whole setup to each side of the vehicle. I'm going to have them folded down in a common way you'd see them. These are a little on the large side. They're from a Heller model that I'm using for parts, but they're close enough. And once again, these will be covered with netting, so I'm looking more for seeing them not being 100% accurate, but being close to where you won't notice the difference. Now I'm using Tamiya NATO black acrylic flat paint and covering up the areas in the black where it would have been in the first place, and then I'll follow it up with the brown on the areas that are browned. Now I'm going to start the weathering of the road wheels. The biggest and most important part here is when you're doing this, make sure you have them laid flat and not sitting on the vehicle sideways, because the enamel wash, kind of like a pen wash I'm using, this Tamiya product, it will actually settle, and if the vehicle is sitting with the wheels normally, then you'll have a big spot on the bottom and it'll look completely incorrect. I put this on fairly liberally because I'm looking for a rather dirty, dusty look, but what I like about it is it kind of pulls into the edges and creates a natural look of the vehicle dust that you would get built up from driving down the road. I'm going to start doing my weathering underneath the vehicle, below the fender area, behind the road wheels. What I'm using here is rust to kind of create the chipped up look that you would see. Now I'm just putting the initial enamel paint spots on, and then I'm going to follow it up with enamel thinner to create the smeared look. I will use multiple colors here and then blend them all together, as you'll see shortly. Now when I load the brush up, I'm using a wide soft brush, but I'm lightly loading it with the enamel thinner. I don't want it too thick or too heavy because then it'll just create a big mess. But by lightly having it damp, it helps this effect. This is one of the things I enjoy doing. The biggest thing to remember here is to do subtle, don't push down real hard, and work with it. Don't just try and do it all in one pull. Now I'm going to simulate the built up dirt you would see in the certain parts of the undercarriage area. Now what I'm using is a couple of different powders. What I like about this product and this concept is when you take enamel thinner and lightly load your brush up, it helps this stuff actually dissolve, and then if you put a lot of it on, it actually sticks and builds up to create a real good grubby look. And what I'm doing here is I've built it up heavy and then I'm dabbing it on, and it actually sticks and then dries, and once it's done it looks like your natural dirt you would see built up inside of the vehicle. One of the things to remember when doing this effect is get it in the corners and edges more thick where you would naturally see it build up. From there, continue on to the upper body of the vehicle, doing the pull down with the enamel paint and then using the brush lightly damped with thinner to kind of peel it out. With this color I'm looking to create the faded look you'd see from rain and then oxidation. Then following up with a little bit of brown, more of a pin wash type effect here. Now what I'm doing is taking the AFV netting material and following the instructions. I'm doing the initial painting of it. What it says to do is paint it and then let it dry, and then you're going to take it and put it in water for 3 minutes and take it and pull the corners up, then flip it over, put it on the little mount that you build from the box it comes in, and then you'll peel it off from there. Unfortunately, I followed the instructions as good as I could and thought I did it correctly, but this did not go well, as you will see shortly. After letting it dry overnight, I prepared my water bath and put it in there for 3 minutes. And this is room temperature water, not too hot, not too cold. I waited 3 minutes exactly and then started the removal process. Now I've pulled the corners up and prepared it. What I realized pretty quickly is this material feels and responds just like a decal, so I believe it to be the exact same type product. Pretty much everything at this point is not going as planned, but I am following the way the instructions explained it. It stuck to that, which is it's wet. I should have realized that. And I started peeling it off. It was coming off okay, and then things started to go sideways. As I said, it's very fragile, started immediately to tear apart and fall through, and just plain didn't go well. at this point I pretty much got frantic and just tried to save the product. Ended up having it falling apart right and left in my hands. So I ended up just picking it up and laying it over a dowel to try and get it to work, and was able to let it dry properly, but nothing was going well. In continuing to follow the instructions, I had to let it dry, so I took the time to paint the little wires I put in to simulate the chains. A lot of this would be covered up anyway, so I wasn't too concerned about the accuracy of it. And then started working on some more of the details of the model, adding the rust to the extra track links, and preparing that for the next stage of the build. I took a little bit of silver chalk here and hit it around the edges of the access point for the turret, and then where the crew might create wear and tear wearing some of the paint off. I kind of like the effect I've seen in a lot of the realistic pictures, so I wanted to simulate that effect with this, and it worked out quite well. Next, I started doing some of the chalk work on the sides, creating the dusty look you'd see naturally built up. This is always something I enjoy doing. It's one of those fun parts of the process. It's just a matter of trial and error, finding the right tool and the right application pressure. But I enjoy the effect you get from it. It makes it look really nice. The whole idea here is to have a vehicle that's, kind of on the extreme end of its lifespan, needing a little bit of TLC in the paint department, and then it's also being used quite a lot. After completing all that work, I'm going to seal it in using Tamiya clear flat. This protects it all and makes it able to go to the next stage without wiping off all the chalk or details you've added. I'm using a fairly liberal coat here, pretty heavy, to make sure it's good and sealed, and definitely everything is nice and flat now. Now I'm going to start adding the AFV netting. Now what I'm using to adhere it is a 50-50 mix of white glue and water. One of the things I noticed initially is I liked how it had dried. Once again, I am following the instructions as listed, as the best I understood that. But the product is very, very brittle and was breaking in my hand and falling apart. And like I said before, it pretty much seemed like the consistency of a decal, so it's very, very fragile. It looks really nice, but you touch it and it falls apart. So I was figuring the glue would help strengthen a little bit and as I started gluing it down, I was getting an effect I liked and was at this point very pleased with it. A lot of the white areas you see there, that all, once it dries, that disappears, and I've done this in the past with other products and never had any issues, so very confident at this point of the outcome I was going to have. So I finished the lower part and did the hull and was pretty pleased with the results, although it was a struggle. Left her for about 20 minutes taking a break. When I came back in to inspect the product, everything had gone backwards. The entire product had gone flat. It looked horrible, and in trying to fix it, it just got worse. In a panic, to try and save the model, I ended up just taking it over to the sink since it was glued on with white glue and used hot water to wash it off. Unfortunately, this created other problems in that it got a white film which almost looked like oxidation, but I was able to fix that. But here's an idea of what it looked like. It was just a nightmare, and there was no way to fix it, so it was a total write-off. I did follow the instructions, but as you can see, it didn't go well. So then I decided I'm just going to go with the AK Interactive product. Now, I had bought the white version for a leopard I was planning on to do in the snow pattern, and it says you can paint it, so I figured, okay, I'm just going to try it out. So I painted one side in olive drab and then flipped it over and painted the other side in NATO green. Fairly liberal, but trying to create kind of a weathered look on this. And it definitely took the paint as expected, and as you can see, it gave a much better result. After doing that, I had to figure out how to save the turret. So what I decided to do is take my clear flat acrylic and treat it again, hoping that I could seal up, and figuring that a lot of this white was caused by the initial clear flat oxidizing or having some weird effect from the water. Probably wasn't totally dry when I got it wet again. But in the process of doing this, it did correct 90% of it and actually kind of gave it a neat weathered look that I actually liked. So I turned the disaster around into a success and moved forward with the project. So taking the AK Interactive netting, I pulled it apart along the same pattern. Yeah, you can see you can kind of pull it here as you stretch it. It pulls apart and creates the effect you're looking for. It's just a slow process, delicately pulling it, and then kind of comparing the other sheet next to it. You can kind of get an idea of how far you pull it apart. Probably about 15-20% longer than it was originally. Then I'm going to go back to my Elmer's white glue 50-50 with water mixture, preparing it for the installation of the netting, and back to adding the netting again. Now the idea here with the netting is to kind of get an idea of what you want to cover and how you want to cover it. Then it's better to tear it gently and then wrinkle it up and kind of rough it, and that creates a better effect. If you cut it, it looks a lot of fake. It definitely tears easy, but it's a much better effect. Once I get it formed, I'm going to apply a little bit of the white glue mixture on it, and then just glue it down, then dab it with the glue. Now the neat thing about this product is as you lay it down, you kind of pull it, and if you can find things to kind of hook it on, it even creates a better effect. But as it gets damp, it kind of gets a little bit of pliability. It's a little harder to install, but it creates a really nice effect. It's just a matter of just working with it, patience, and playing with it. What I also like about the camouflage netting is you can use it to cover up the parts of the model that aren't as detailed as you'd like, or parts that you may have done that didn't work out quite right. And for this kit, some of the parts that aren't as detailed as I like, I use it to kind of cover up and create the camouflage effect, but also, as I said, you can cover up things that aren't as nice as you'd like it to be. So here's going to be the final product. You have the AK netting. Unfortunately, the AFV netting did not work out at all, but the AK netting definitely did come in and finish the job nicely. You can see the vehicle's got a little bit of road wear, some oxidation over time. It's obviously an older version that probably needs to be repainted, was kind of the effect I was looking for. You've got the dirtiness, you've got some mud buildup underneath the area around the road wheels. Just the overall completed look. Definitely changes the whole concept of the Tamiya kit. I think it makes it look a lot nicer and more refined. The netting covers up the parts of it that aren't exactly as nice as I would like, but definitely finishes it off. Also, this netting is the newer version of the netting, more accurate than the Type 2. So, real pleased with it. The overall finished up look looks a lot nicer. This model's definitely been through a lot since I built it back in the late 70s, but I'm real pleased with this result. So, questions or comments always welcome. Please ask in the comments. Please like, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell and share this video. You can get a hold of me on Facebook. You can email me. Once again, thank you for watching. Take care, everyone. More videos coming soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.